Welcome back to the most electrifying podcast in sports entertainment, Undefeated with Michael Montgomery. I am Michael Montgomery, a.k.a. Mr. Thanksgiving, making sure everybody eats, sitting down with real people with real impact for real results for the good. And next up, I'm pleasured to introduce you to former fitness champion, Team USA model, and she has her own show, Shape Up with Santana Rodriguez.
Hi, everyone.
Man, thank you again. I really appreciate you coming on. Just like we was talking about earlier, I just kind of, regulated with your story coming up from a small town, having big dreams, and I would just want to say this to all my audience. Everybody sees you. They see beautiful woman, and model. They think that just things are just given to you. I want you to talk about your upbringing and talk about how you earn your right to be in your position, because models, fitness, all that, everybody sees the end goal, the end product, but they don't see what's the building blocks that you placed in your life to get you where you are today. Just briefly go over your background, your family, and just where you came to today.
Sure. It's been a long journey. I think that's where I can begin. I was always that little girl, small town girl that had big dreams. I wanted to do so much in my life. And, I was brought up with some very strict parents. I went to church every Sunday. We were, how should I say, my sister and I basically raised where we had to be home after school all the time. There's just so many rules and regulations. So I felt like, I'd missed out a lot in my lifetime, a lot of opportunities that were presented even during school, but I wasn't able to take part in. And I said to myself, I'm going to make up for that, at some point. And I did. And so when I had drifted off to college, that was the most exciting time of my life, because that was when I truly experienced pure freedom. And it was so exciting because it was educational. I met so many people from all over the world. It was really, really beautiful. And that's where I really tapped in a lot into my culture. So it was an exciting time, but I knew that I wanted more. And I remember that the main basis of me going away to college was because I wanted to get away from home, honestly. And that's the truth. It was the core component that made me want to go to school. I mean, everybody can all say, we want to grow up, get an education, but that's usually thrown upon us. We're supposed to be doing what we're told to do. But I think at that time, an escape. I wanted to be independent. And keep in mind, I was that little girl that shared a room with my sister. I never had my own space. I never had my own time to myself. My parents pretty much controlled me. So it was, I wanted that freedom. And so when I got that freedom, I loved how it felt. I was finally getting to know me. But the difference was, I was in college, I was in a dorm room. You're still not completely, I'm going to say free, because you still have someone looking after you. Parents are always, trying to protect you from afar. But the difference was, it was a taste of that freedom. So after college, I had gone back home to Buffalo. And at that time, I really, really started thinking about what I really wanted. Like, my 2-year degree was in fashion merchandising. My 4-year degree was in business marketing. And I just wanted to go far away and do something on my own. And so that's where I said, I'm going to go to California. And at that time, I was in a relationship where I was engaged to be married. And I woke up one day and I said, I can't do this. I haven't even experienced life. I'm still a kid, and there's so much more to explore. And, it was almost like at that time when I was with my boyfriend, it was not because like we lived together, but it wasn't really because we wanted to. At that time, I had an apartment where literally I had 6 months to myself living in the apartment. And I, at that time, was working a job, telemarketing job, barely surviving. But it didn't matter. I loved it. I couldn't even drive at the time. I literally took the bus to the grocery store, and it was exciting to me. It wasn't about, prestige. It was freedom. That's what I really wanted more than anything else in my life. And so, I mean, to fast forward, at that time, I remember my boyfriend and I had only lived together because I lost my job and literally I had nowhere to go. My parents weren't saying, come back home. And I didn't want to go back home. And then he and I lived together, and he was basically kicked out because we were always going to his house. And I remember his mom said, you're not going to be, shacking up in my home or this and that. You're out of here. So he got kicked out. I lost my job. And so literally we'd moved in because it was more of a convenient situation. So realistically, like, I was with this guy and I said, he was a great guy. It wasn't the timing. I felt like I was missing out. And I remember telling him, I have these dreams, and I would say the most comedic part about the whole thing was every time I came home and I said, I'm so excited, and he's like, oh, what? It wasn't like excited for me. He was afraid of what was going to come out of my mouth because he feared my my drive and my motivation and my excitement to just, go after everything I wanted. And so when I said to him, what is the problem? Why aren't you ever happy for me? And he's like, because I'm always scared of what you're going to say to me, because you're probably going to leave me. Well, unfortunately, that actually happened. Because what I started doing and the way I tapped into the whole world of acting was, while I was with him, I remember at that time, we didn't have like the savvy computers and all the information that we have at our feet today. So I'd go to the library and I started studying my craft. What is the Screen Actors Guild? What is an agent? And what does a manager do? So at that time, I remember I found the listing of all the agencies that were registered with the Screen Actors Guild, and I started sending my material out. And I did a little bit of modeling in Toronto as well, where it pretty much opened up, the doors for modeling. So
I hate to cut it off. So at the time, you wasn't in Buffalo. Where were y'all living at this time?
I was at that time living. Actually, I was living in Buffalo, and at that time, when I was living with him, I wanted to tap into the modeling world. So I would get all these books with the listing of agents on there. And I figured, since California is so far away, let me try Toronto. And so I sent out some of my Polaroid shot modeling photos. And I got called. And I remember this one agency was like, unfortunately, you have a face of an angel, but you're too little. You're never going to be able to model. And I said, I could do print work and catalog. And she said, no, you have to be at least, 5'7" or 5'6" in order to do print work. Wow. And so, I was a little discouraged at that time, but it didn't stop me. And I remember I ended up going to this agent called the Short Model Agency. And I thought it was because it was for short people, like myself.
I like the name. So, the name says itself, but.
Exactly. And so when they contacted me, it had nothing to do with being short. The last name of the agent was named Short, the guy who owned it. So,
oh, wow.
But he gave me a shot, and I'll never forget it. I remember he put me in contact with I think it was Elizabeth Rossellini's makeup artist, and he set me up with a full entire shoe at no cost. And he truly, I'll never forget him, because he was the first guy that really gave me that first opportunity. And so at that point, that's where I got the motivation. I'm like, I know I can do this. And when I saw my photos, I was like, wow, I know I can take this further. So that's when I started sending out photos and all my material to agents in Los Angeles. And I was so excited. I had heard from 2 major agencies, and they wanted to, meet with me. And I said, well, I'm in Buffalo. They're like, well, let us know, when you're here in LA. And that's how it all began. I took a trip out there, and I interviewed, and it was really exciting because that guy did the same thing to me. I'll never forget, it was the Gordon Rowell agency. And he set me up with a photo shoot and with this top photographer. He was huge, like literally very well known. And it was like a dream. It was exciting. And when I saw those photos, I was like, wow, these are magnificent. And so, yeah, he said, I said, what's the next step? And he's like, well, I'd like to sign you on, and you let me know when you're in Los Angeles, but you have to be here because I have to send you out on auditions, and you've got to be available. And I said, okay. I will let you know when I'm ready. And I came out about 2 months later. And that's really how it started. But also I'm going to say the motivating force for me was my dad. My dad, unfortunately, encountered diabetes type 2. And my dad lost his leg through an amputation, and that hit me pretty hard. So one of the things that made me delay my trip to LA was because of my father. And I was in a tough situation because I was living with, a partner that I just wasn't ready to marry. And I felt that I was living my life for everybody else but myself. I felt guilty about leaving him after all the things, he would do for me. I felt guilty about my dad. I said, I can't leave him in a state like that, of depression like this. But I was also depressed. I was severely depressed. And I'll never forget that feeling of just feeling trapped and just living for everybody else except me. And so I'll never forget the time when I told my dad I wanted to come to California. And he looked at me and he said, but I'm not well. I mean, look at me, look at the situation I'm in. And I said, well, Dad, I would never, ever leave you in that state, never. And it didn't matter to me what it was. But the reality was I was hurting inside because I was watching my dreams of what I really wanted to do diminish. And I didn't think I could get out to LA. And my priority was definitely my dad. And I was in that relationship and just, trying to fulfill everybody else's heart except my own. And so one day, my dad said to me, he looked at me because he saw my pain. He saw that I was hurting, and I never knew that my dad paid that close attention to me as his daughter, especially knowing what he was going through at the time. And my dad said, you can go now. I said, what do you mean? And he's like, I thought, at the moment, he said, no, you can go to California. And I'm like, no, I would never leave you like that. I said, even though I wanted to, but my dad was my priority. I said, I'm not leaving you. I said, no, I'm here for you. And he said, no, I'm better now. It's okay. You can go now. And then as soon as I heard that, I was elated. I was excited, and I wasted no time. I booked my ticket literally to go off to California for good. And I set a goal at that time that I was going to leave before Christmas. And, you know, with my family, you know, holidays weren't like a really big thing. Like at that time, like I didn't understand, you know, the meanings of things like I do today. And yeah, I did a very selfish act where I said, I'm going to leave before Christmas. That was the ultimate goal. But I wasn't thinking about, you know, family or anything like that, because again, you know, even though like my family grew up, we gave each other gifts. It wasn't like we really celebrated. So at that time I said, you know, here's the goal. And I had broken up the engagement with my fiance at the time. And
now,
what
was
it was hard.
What was his reaction?
He was angry. Literally, very angry beyond belief. I remember him sharing that with his family, and they were really, from what he said, critiquing how selfish of a human being I was to leave everybody and not think about anyone before the holidays. And at that time, I remember, I mean, he was shocked because I don't think he thought I was ever going to leave him. And I remember being in a situation where I felt incredibly dependent on him. I wasn't, you know, I didn't have a driver's license. I really didn't have anything going for me. And it wasn't until about, I think about 3 weeks before I left was when I got my driver's license. And that was through my best friend in Buffalo who helped me get that, because he saw what I was going through and he supported me. He wanted me to be happy. And I'm not trying to make, you know, my partner, you know, look evil in any way. He wasn't. I just knew I had a dream and I wanted to fulfill it. And it was time. It was time. It was my time. It was my turn, I felt, to make me happy. It was my turn to stop making everybody else feel happy. I mean, I was in a deep depression. It was bad. I was depressed. And I said, I need to get out of here. And so, yeah, I booked my ticket. And so when I told my dad, he was shocked. He said, what? I said, well, you told me I could go. And so, you know, it was just an instantaneous reaction that I had, that I didn't expect to feel, you know. And so my dad was shocked. And I looked at it like it was a goal. And I would say that's where realistically it all began. Me trying to obtain goal after goal after goal. That was my first step. So when I got to LA, I remember I came out with $5,000, and I thought that was an awful lot of money. That was going.
Yeah, me too.
I thought I was rich at that time, and I was like, you know, first of all, I made mistake after mistake after mistake. I ended up in Torrance, far away from LA.
Yeah.
And so I remember calling this hotel, and I thought I did my research, and I stayed at the Extended Stay America. And I said, wow, I can stay here for, you know, an entire month and I'll be fine. But I took the advice of the person at the front desk. I said, how far is Los Angeles from this place, Torrance? And they told me, well, it's not that far away. It's about, you know, maybe I'll never forget it. They said 20 minutes. Well, I didn't have my car because I had it shipped out to Los Angeles, literally. And literally I had to count on, you know, cabs. I had to count on, you know, I'm like, how am I going to, I mean, like discover LA from here and far away. So that's when I decided, after the 3 weeks that I was booked there, that I would switch hotels. And I said, I've got to go closer to LA. So my car still hadn't arrived. It was supposed to be in Los Angeles, literally within 2 weeks. It never arrived. Keep in mind, it's December, it's in the middle of winter. So I was really, really stuck having to take cabs. And I'll never forget my reaction when the cab driver would say, it's X amount of dollars. I said, what? I'm like, no way. That's a lot of money. I mean, to go all the way to LA? He's like, yes. And I was like, okay. So I didn't know where to go. And I ended up, I remember it was UCLA at a dorm. And it was one of those places where you could stay if you wanted to visit the school. And I had no interest in going to UCLA. You know, at the time I had graduated from college anyway, but like the point of being was I needed to go somewhere to stay, and I didn't know where to go. So I stayed there 2 nights, and then I called the cab again. And after staying there, I decided, okay, I need to go to a hotel even closer to LA. Where am I going to go?
Yeah.
And so I broke down at that time, and I'll never forget. I didn't know what to do. And so before coming out to LA also, I remember I did an interview with Merck Pharmaceuticals, and my plan was to work for them and have a full-time job before and be able to survive in Los Angeles. Well, I made it through 3 interviews. I thought I nailed the job. Unfortunately, I did not nail the job. And that interview, I'll never forget, was in Santa Ana, California. And so I know I'm jumping all over the place here, but all these recollections of memories are coming back to me. And I remember it was a disappointment, because I thought, you know, I had it all together and the plan was set in stone, and realistically, you know, it was not. And I'm like, what am I going to do? And that's when, you know, I made all those other plans, and then I didn't know what to do. And so I remember the reason I brought that up was because there was a guy at the counter, I remember, at the hotel, that gave me his phone number, and he said, if you ever need anything, once you know, move out to Los Angeles, you give me a call. And I remember giving him a call, and I said, I need your help. I said, you know, I don't really know anybody here, and I need help. And so he drove from Santa Ana all the way to UCLA, picked me up. But little did I know, because of poor planning on my part, everything's closed because it's the holidays, right? Everybody's going away. And at that time, it was just a really, really bad situation. And that guy, that was another story too. I remember him driving me all over the place, and we couldn't, you know, find a place because the offices were closed. I remember it was during the holiday season. And so absolutely nothing was accomplished. And so he said he would come back the following day to help me, which would have been like a Monday. So he returned. And then at that time, I remember I ended up getting another place. How could I forget this? It was called the Farmer's Daughter's Hotel. Well, my dad was a farmer.
Yeah.
So literally, I mean, what a perfect place for me, right? That's exactly where I ended up, was at the Farmer's Daughter's Hotel, which was literally across the street from the farmer's market. And I got that little hotel there, and I checked in, and again, I didn't know anything, and they wanted a deposit. And I said, for what? And they're like, we need to reserve, you know, funds for, you know, any kind of charges afterwards. And I'm like, nobody does that. But then again, I've never stayed in a hotel before, so I literally didn't know any of this. And I'm sorry to carry on about this, but it was such an intense memory, because I mean, I was so innocent, like literally I didn't know anything. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I thought it was going to be, the land of dreams the moment that I stepped off that plane, and it was the furthest thing from the truth.
Yeah.
And so anyways, I got checked in at the Farmer's Daughters Hotel, and I called that guy from Santa Ana at the counter, and he comes over, and then he took me all over to try to find a place. And then long story short, we didn't find anything. And then I'll never forget where he was so tired because I guess he had an overnight shift that he wanted to like literally stay in my place. And I'm like, what are you doing? He went right to my bed and started laying down. And I said, no, you got to get up. I said, you got to go. And he said, I drove all the way over here. It's more than an hour and a half to get here. I drove, I worked all night. I'm exhausted. He's like, listen, I came here for you. And I said, you know what? Okay, fine. You can stay here. I'm stepping out. And I took a walk, I remember. So I started taking a walk. Again, I don't know anything about jaywalking. And I'm, literally like walking the neighborhood because I had no car. And I crossed the street, and I had this cop coming up to me and stopping me. And he's like, you're jaywalking. And I said, what is that? So he explained that to me, and I get ticketed. I said, listen, I'm new in town. Don't give me a ticket. I didn't know. And he's like, it doesn't matter. Now you know. So I get a ticket, and then I'm really pissed off. Now I go back to the hotel, and I'm trying to kick this guy out of here. And he's like, I'm like, wake up. You got to go. You got to get out of here. And then he's like, oh, just give me a moment. He gets up. I'll never forget. He washes his face, and then he's like, I'm really tired. I said, you got to go. I'm sorry. I said, I really appreciate everything you've done, but you got to go. And because I felt really uncomfortable. I don't know who this guy is. And then things, really got scary. And I'll never forget, like, I opened the door for him, and he shut the door on me. And there I am inside with him. And it was very, very creepy. And I stood my ground, and I'm like, if you're not out of here, I'm going to scream. And it was just one horrible experience after another. And then he left, and I locked my door, and then I broke down for the first time in 3 weeks. And I'll never forget, I cried and cried my eyes out, and I was running out of money, and it was just a horrible situation. And then at that time, make a long story short, I keep saying this, I remember when I was working as a telemarketer, this guy that said, if you ever go to California, look up this girl. Her name is Maria. She's an actress, and she's a good friend of mine, and just reach out to her. And I always had a lot of pride. Like, I'm the type of person where if I need help, I don't want to ask anybody. I want to do everything on my own. And I was always taught that, to take care of me, never ask for anything. And I never did. And I knew it was a point where I need help here. And I called her, and I'll never forget that girl as long as I live. She's now a friend of mine, and she came out of her way, and I'll never forget it. She picked me up, and that first night, I remember she said, we got to get you, a bank account. And I said, I can't open a bank account because I don't have an account at all here. And so you have to wait 7 days, I remember at that time. And I was stuck. And at that time, I remember I had to call my fiance that I broke up with for help. And I did not want to do, oh my God, I'll never forget. I did not, for the life of me, want to call him. And when I told him everything that was going on, he was so upset. Like, that's how much love he gave me. He's like, I'm going to go down there and I'm going to get you myself if I have to, and you're coming back here. And I said, no, I'm not. I said, I'm never going back there. You either help me or if you want or not, but I'm not going back home. I mean, for me, it was a pride thing, as if saying I couldn't do it. And that was unacceptable for me. And so he ended up telling me, I'm going to lend you, I'll never forget, $2,000. And I said, I'll pay you back, whatever, but right now I need it. And he did. And so he Western Union me the money, I'll never forget. And Maria took me over to the Western Union. And she's like, you're going to be okay. Everything's going to be fine. And I remember she let me stay with her that night. I remember she introduced me to some of her friends, and she's like, you're going to spend the night here. Okay. It's going to be all right. And I'll never forget her. And then we all went out. I remember that one night, and we had fun. And then I stayed with her. And the next day she took me all over the place looking for an apartment. And then after that, she took me back to, I remember that Farmer's Daughters hotel that I was staying at. And, I'll never forget that girl as long as I live, because, there are good people out here in LA. And had it not been for her, I don't know what the scenario would have been. But she went as far as to take me over to the bank and help me open up an account. And because she had a friend that worked there, and they did it as a favor for her. And she was a blessing in disguise. She really was. I felt like, oh, wow, God really sent me an angel. She was amazing. And then after that, I remember the next day, we already set it up. We found an apartment, and she's like, you're going to put X amount of money down. And I wasn't crazy about that apartment. And I remember I was very gutsy. And at that time, I remember looking at apartments.com book, and I was sitting in my hotel room, and I saw a place not too far from me. And so I decided I'm going to walk to check this place out. And I walked pretty damn far to get there. And I loved it. And I put down, I remember, my deposit for that apartment. And then the next day, they told me I could move in 2 days. And I walked back to that hotel, and I took my suitcase and literally walked all the way down to this apartment complex with the suitcase down the road for miles. I didn't care. And that was the beginning of my new life in Los Angeles.
Oh, wow.
It was crazy. It really was. It was one that I'll never forget. And for anybody that thinks that they can come out to Los Angeles and it's going to be easy, it's not. I mean, keep in mind, I didn't know anybody out here. And it was very hard because, as an inexperienced person coming out to this big city and not knowing anything about the banks and deposits at hotels, I mean, that money was running so fast. I mean, I would not have known, honestly, what to do. And my ex really saved me at that time. And I thought, wow, what a beautiful person. I mean, he is, considering the fact that I broke this guy's heart, left him, and took off. And what a beautiful gesture that was. And it didn't take me back to him. We didn't get back together with him, but I do remember him saying, let's get back together, and I'll move there. And I said, no, you don't understand. It's not about us or you. It's about me and wanting literally to find myself. And it's just really emotional because um, I've come a long way.
Yeah.
I mean, the funniest part is like people don't realize what your story is and how you got to where you were. I've always been a hard worker.
Mm.
I've always, I mean, I will sacrifice and I will put in the time and the work to get to where I need to be. I mean, literally, my first apartment was a little studio and I had no furniture and I was sleeping on the floor. Like literally, I took the clothes that I had in my suitcase and I laid them out, and I'll never forget, like literally setting up a little bed, and my coat was my pillow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I slept like that literally for weeks. And I mean, I'll tell you, I wouldn't trade those moments for the world, because when you can take those memories
Mm-hmm.
and think about where you were at one point and think about where you are today, that journey was the greatest education that I got within my life, because I had to learn from experience, and I had to, learn to become street smart on my own. I had to learn, I mean, from the bottom up, really, to get to where I really needed to go. And I'm appreciative of those moments
Mm-hmm.
because I had to go through that to appreciate what I have now. And I had to go through those things to appreciate where I came from. And I had to go through that to appreciate the root of who I am.
Man.
And so, yeah, it's emotional.
Yeah. So in your words, what would you say to the little girls that's coming up? They have big dreams, and feel like they're being pressured by their family, their loved ones, to stay where they're at, and they want to go off and explore. What would you tell, I guess, a young you in that similar situation?
I would say to them, you know what, you've got one life, and you can't turn back the clock. And when you miss that point in time, you're going to live with so much regret.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to build resentment, because if you follow the lead of what people tell you or your family tells you when your heart is in a different place, you are going to be one angry individual, because it doesn't matter. Parents, a lot of times, they want to protect you and their intentions are good. They really are. A family, a lot of times, do want to protect you. But at the same time, these are also parents maybe that never really lived their own dreams.
Mm-hmm.
And so they don't really understand the reality of bringing that dream to life. They don't live in a world like that. They live in a structured world, because as children, we are told, when you grow up, you have to figure out what it is that you want to be or do. You have to go to school and you have to graduate. And then, you're going to you find your first job, and then you build on that job. And then you find, the partner of your dreams. And then you get married, and then you get the house, and then you get the child. Like, that's the structured world that we live in, and that's the way we're brought up to build our world to be. And it didn't sit right with me. And so I always say to anyone that wants to do something like that, you better go for it. And I'm going to encourage them to do that. And you know what? Sometimes, a lot of times, we spend so much time trying to protect everybody, but the reality is, it's like you have to let someone soar on their own. They have to make their own mistakes. And it's so easy. I can understand why a parent would want to just say, I want to be there, to protect and to prevent things from happening. But the reality is there's going to be so much in the world that's going to occur without the parent being present. It's just going to happen, and you can't always be the savior. You've got to let people make their mistakes in order to grow as a person, to grow, as a child into a teenager. You've got to let them be. The only thing that you can do is that hope that you instilled the best of your teachings that you have within a child, so that they eventually make that, right decision on their own. But you can't stop them from living what they want to do, or pursuing their dreams. They've got to be able to have that experience. And if they fall, then you've got to let them fall. Because honestly, going through, what I did when I got out here, I fell a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, inside my heart was happy. I was happy because I was doing everything on my own. No longer am I being protected. No longer am I sharing a room. I am on my own. And so at this point, it's up to me to make my own mistakes. And we all need to go through mistake after mistake after mistake to grow and progress and learn. You've got to have that experience. Otherwise, if somebody's always there to catch you, honestly, you're never going to learn, and you're never going to grow. And you want to become as soulful as possible throughout the journey. And for me, it was worth every moment of everything I've ever been through. And so now I have this little girl that I mentor. I'm a big sister for the Big Brothers and Big Sisters program. And so when you ask me those things, I remember always saying I would try to protect her from this business. Like, one day, I hope she never comes to me. I would say to myself, to want to be, an actress or any kind of part of this business, because it's a shady industry, and there's a lot of evil, but at the same time, there's angels, and it's about who you surround yourself with. And it's about making the right decisions, that if something doesn't feel right, or being around someone doesn't feel right, that you're going to walk away and kind of stray. But a lot of us don't do that, because we have to learn the hard way in order to learn the right way. Yeah. And that's okay, because it's about the journey. But with her, I love her so much. We're going on our 5th year of being matched, and she's growing into the most incredible, beautiful young woman. I had her when she barely turned 7 as a match, and now she's going into those teenage years. She'll be 12 literally this fall. And I personally don't have any children, and I never married. I've been engaged a couple of times, but I gotta say that she's like the child I never had. And I understand the whole protective nature, but I know that all I can do is instill the best that I can within her, and hope that she takes those words and information that I've always shared with her and makes the right decisions in her life. And she's just incredible. But yeah, I would encourage anyone to follow their dreams and encourage them to be the best that they can get, that they can be, because there's no turning back. They have to have that experience. And I'm glad that I took the route that I did. I've been you have no idea. Like, I've gone through the corporate world. That's what I was doing before I came out here. I even left the business to go back into the corporate world a few years, but I did it with a plan. I was the struggling actress that wasn't making any kind of money.
Mhm.
And I got tired of living like that. I was going out with friends all the time. And I remember at that point, I said, after 2 years of going out every single weekend and club after club, it's time to grow up. I didn't have that opportunity because I was always in a married type relationship that I never really got to go out and date and have fun. And I wanted that. And that's when I started going out all the time. And anyhow, I wanted bigger and better things. I wanted to own a house. I wanted, to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to capitalize off of the business, but it took a plan. And that plan was, unfortunately, as much as I didn't want to do that, I got tired of struggling and I went back to a corporate job and I learned about corporate. And at that time, I had no interest in the entertainment industry anymore. And when I saw what the corporate world is really about, in my opinion, I felt like there was no getting ahead. And I'm not trying to offend anybody out there that's in the corporate world, but there's no security in that either, which is why I pursued it. And I felt there were times where there was no gratification for doing a lot of hard work within that field. I saw a lot of political things happening within that field, which, it occurs in any field, but it was about a plan. It was about a plan to make money, to save money. And then at that time, I just, I pursued other things. I learned how to trade stocks and I became really great at it. I started making more money. And then at that time, I said, you know what, I'm going to develop my fitness show. And that's how I did it. I saved my money. I believed in my show. I learned about production throughout the years. I surrounded myself with people that could teach me things. They taught me the business and I knew how to negotiate on my own. It was really an exciting time because I felt powerful. It wasn't only about the corporate. I had, a lot of background to me, whether it was fashion or business marketing or even personal training was another thing, because I was also a competitor before, not like bodybuilding, but I've experienced so many different genres in life that I knew how to put it all together and become my own businesswoman because I understood so many different segments of the industry that it made me even more powerful, that I didn't have to depend on somebody trying to promote me. I knew how to handle myself at that point. So it's been a beautiful journey and here I am today.
And the show. Can you just go into detail about the show, who it represents, who it benefits?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
About your show. Can you represent the? Can you tell the detail about your show to the audience?
Yeah, absolutely. So Shaping Up with Santana was developed because I wanted to put together a fun, exciting fitness show. Something where, a lot of people would have just a great time at. And the best part of it was, I remember years ago, I was watching these workout shows and literally before going to work, or school at 6 o'clock in the morning, I would work out to one of these fitness shows. And I loved it. And I remember dreaming and saying, I want to be a part of that one day, but I wanted to be, the fitness girl in there. But then as I evolved, I said, no, I want to produce it. I want to have my own show. And that was the driving force of me putting this together, because the workouts are really done in real time. So basically I'm working out just like a fitness video, and you're watching the show and you're doing the workouts with me. And then I started, incorporating a nutrition segment, a segment about, toning. But the most important thing is that I wanted it to be a lot of fun, because I know how difficult training can be. It's not easy. I mean, usually a lot of people have to sacrifice a few hours a day. And I relate to that, because, there are a lot of, full-time workers that have families and children, and they say, I don't have time. I just don't have the time. And I don't blame them. I understand, because by the time you get to the gym is literally, time taken out of your hands. If you're literally coming from work, by the time you change into your workout gear, then you actually, start doing your cardio, or, you're training with the weights. That's more time. And then now you're talking about, shower time or drive time to home if you're going to shower at home. And then you're starving, so you got to eat too. So you're talking about literally a 2.5, 3-hour window of time to put into, trying to look your best, feel your best from the inside out. It's not easy. And so I empathize with people that say, I don't have time. So the bottom line is addressing everyone's situation. How do you create something that is going to be fun, where they don't have to leave their homes, and pretty much, be able to do it in their own time? And that's why I developed Shaping Up with Santana, because literally I wanted people to have fun. I have cool music on my show. And if you are passionate about music, like I am, because if there's no music, I'm not working out. I can't work out. There's just no way, no how. I need music to motivate me, get me in the groove and moving. And that's what does it for me. So I try to incorporate things within the show that are going to be a lot of fun for people. And so with my steps that I do, it's not about technique. I don't care if you are a klutz or you can't dance, or I don't care what your situation is. I want people to just move, burn calories, burn fat, move. I don't care about structure, because honestly, like, for example, and I'm not knocking it down, because I love Zumba, but I mean, you have to be a coordinated person to get those steps. And it's like, if you can't pick up the steps, people are wasting their time trying to get it together, and they're not going to have fun, because now it's become work again. So that's what I did not want for my show. And that's really what it's all about. It's about having a good time and having fun, and just, moving. That's all I care about. Just move, do something, and have fun and enjoy it. And so that's Shaping Up with Santana. And we were very fortunate, because honestly, we started out at the Beach Channel in Miami, Florida, where it first aired. And then the following year, it was all planned out as I'm going to say November 30th, that the launch show date for Apple and Roku was going to be March 15th, 2020. Oh, man. Already set to go. We were going to have a red carpet party. Everything was going to be set up. I was so excited. And then what happened? COVID hits. And of all weeks, quarantine week happened on the launch of my show week. So literally it was a blessing in disguise, because of the fact that we had the most viewers ever. That's at the time where gyms started closing down. So I felt it was almost it was, to me, destined for it to happen the way it did because of the type of show that it was. When we had it set to air without knowing any of this was going to get to the degree that it did. And then all of a sudden, here we are, and we are a home-based show, one of the very first to get out there during the whole COVID experience. And again, it was the greatest gift. And I looked at it as a godly act. I'm like, no way, no how could all of this have come together at a time when it did. It worked out perfectly, and literally it made our show very successful. So it was the greatest gift ever.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So
Yeah.
so right now, are you single? Are you in a are you relationship?
I don't talk about my
Okay,
personal life,
okay.
but
Okay, because people want to know, like, what type of man do you dig for? But we'll leave that at that.
no, I can discuss that easily.
Yeah, because normally people see fitness models. Do you like a fitness guy, or you don't have a shape preference? Like, what do fitness models
I
normally?
love that question.
Yeah.
I love that question because I honestly don't classify myself, number one, as a fitness model. And the reason I say that, even though it's a big part of my life, I've been through all gamuts of life, corporate world. I've been, a television host. I've been an actress. I've, produced. I've been on all different sides of the industry. Fashion. I managed a store. I've done a lot.
Mhm.
And so to classify me as that, even though, of course, that's what I'm hosting right now, is a fitness show, I don't see myself as that because I don't think on those terms. Like, of course, I think we all want someone that takes, good care of themselves from the inside out.
Mhm.
But for me, it's not. I've never been, and this is going to sound crazy, I was never attracted to fitness model guys.
Uh-oh,
so to
guys,
speak.
y'all hear it. Y'all hear it. Look, it's about who you are on the inside, not on the outside.
That's correct. That's correct. Because honestly, a lot of them are, doing the same routine as you, staring in the mirror and trying to make sure everything's like good to go. Their skin smooth. It's just, to me, I'm very old school also. I'm from the East Coast. I'm from upstate New York. And, most men don't do that out there. They're
Yeah.
very masculine. They fix cars.
Yeah.
And so here in LA, I remember, and I'm going to touch upon what you just said. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I remember when I asked someone to help me with my car at one point, they were like, nobody does that. We hire people.
Yeah,
Just go to a mechanic,
Uh-huh. Yeah, in LA.
Yeah,
for
so
sure.
I'm like, that's right. I forgot I live in a different world here. Okay,
Mhm.
this is not expected out here. So I've learned, that it's almost an expectation here, but there's a lot of pretty boys out here. And as far as my type, I'm not attracted to pretty boys. So in other words, I'm attracted to men that take care of themselves, but they have to have another life and another world outside of, their physique. That's very important to me. I'm very attracted to intellect. I'm very attracted to people that can teach me something or that I can learn from, and I can do the same for them. I like the idea that they take care of themselves, but I don't need someone constantly focused on that on a daily basis. Like, for example, if the conversation can't go past, what to do about getting in shape. I mean, honestly, I'm not interested at all. I'm just not. There has to be substance. There has to be something that's going to basically keep my attention. And it's definitely more than that. I like speaking about life. I personally like to talk about, I mean, a lot of things, the highs and lows in my life or somebody else's life. I want to be able to be an inspiration to somebody else, and I want somebody to be an inspiration to me. And it's like, usually when you're with a partner, you want to bring those attributes out from one another so that you can be, the best version of you, and they can be the best version of them throughout learning from one another, so that we can ourselves make each other better. And that to me is a partnership. And I'm very attracted to building with someone and growing with someone and being a team. And that to me is the most beautiful part about being with someone, because it has to be internal. Because in the end, we're all not going to stay looking fit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we can if you choose to, but the point in being is that it's going to be harder to control as you age. It can't be about that.
Mm-hmm.
It can't be about external ever. I love to take care of myself, absolutely, but I do it for me because I feel better about me when I do that. And not only that, when it comes to health, I want disease prevention. I saw what my dad went through. My mom suffered through cancers. And so it's, to me, I'm going to say part of my job to make myself better from the inside out. It can't be just, external. It's got to serve a purpose that in my future, I don't want to experience the illnesses that I've witnessed my family go through or anybody close to me go through throughout the years. It has to be about, wanting to be healthy from the inside and out. And so that doesn't mean perfection. And so a lot of people kind of, I think, get misguided when, they think that's what it's about, because it's not. And yeah, I'm not interested in someone that's trying to be perfect, because the reality is none of us are.
Mm-hmm.
We aren't. And to try to obtain that level says a lot to me about someone that really wants to get close to perfect, because that tells me that's how close to imperfect they are inside, that they're almost shadowing or maybe masking something from within that they feel like externally they have to get there, because in the end, it's not about any of this here. It's about what we bring to the world from the inside, because that's what's going to sustain you for the rest of your life. It's going to be about you inside. It's going to be about your soul. It's going to be about your spirit. It's going to be about, connection. And so I like to focus a lot on those elements where it's about connecting the mind, the body, and the soul. And I'm a very spiritual person. I hold God close to my heart, and I wasn't always there. It's something that when you grow internally, you find yourself becoming connected to you inside, because literally, for me personally, that's where God is, in my opinion. God is your spirit and God is your soul. And when I always say this to people, when something doesn't feel right inside, some sort of decision, let's say, that you're trying to make, somebody's talking to you. Sometimes you feel that ill feeling inside your stomach where it's just not right, whatever it is. And that's somebody talking to you. It's somebody saying, listen, there's a disconnect here. You're disconnecting from your heart and your soul, because it's a communication that's being administered within yourself. In my opinion, that's, God. That's God talking to me saying, this isn't the right choice. This isn't the right decision. And I compare that to, for example, food, right? When we eat on a daily basis and something doesn't sit well with you, whether whatever it is that you're consuming is healthy for you or not, because your stomach all of a sudden feels funny, or you have a stomach ache, or you're sick, then that's communication. That product isn't good for you. There's something in there that's not, healthy for you. And that's how I always say, when something's healthy or not. So if we take what we learn from food, right, not being healthy or unhealthy for us, it's the same thing with our spiritual connection. You will know when something's healthy for you or not, because you're going to feel it. It's no different from what you consume or ingest. You're going to feel it. If something is not right, you're going to know. There's communication.
That's amazing. I'm glad to hear that. So lesson learned. Everybody that's watching, it's not about what's on the outside, but on the inside, the character, the personality. Man, I would like to thank you for coming on the show, sharing your testimony.
Thank you for having me.
Is there anything you want to promote else, social media, where everybody can find you?
I'm sure you can find me on Instagram, and it's at Santana, FIT, Santana Fit. And you can follow me on YouTube at Santana Rod. You can see some of my videos there. And you can also go into my website at shapingupwithsantana.com, and you can check out the show there. But it's also on Roku and Apple, streaming 24/7. And check me out. Also grab a cover of Maxim. Literally, it's out in New Zealand, but it's all over. It's all over the city there. I've got printed magazines that are flowing all over the place there. And I'm also currently on the cover of FHN USA. The FHN and Maxim New Zealand, first ever special edition fitness issue that I'm very proud to be on, because they've never done a fitness special before. And I am the very first person to ever grace that cover. So it's meaningful and special. And I'd love for you all to definitely go out and grab a copy. You can order it online. And there's a lot of special things coming up too. And it's just honestly been a blessing in disguise throughout the years. And I just can't believe I'm at this moment in my life, or at this stage in my life, where all my dreams literally have come true, and all of yours can too. And you just got to believe in yourself, and don't ever let the negativity of the journey stop you, because you've got to go through all of those that rocky area in order to get better in your life. And these are all going to be lessons that you have to go through in order to improve upon yourself in any genre or area of your life. So be open to that. That's very important.
Man, that's amazing. I'm glad you pitched that. Also, hey, remember, everybody that's tuning in, remember, to follow, like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, Undefeated with Michael Montgomery. We'll be bringing on special guests each and every time, sports entertainment. Thank you again. I really appreciate that. And stay tuned and make sure y'all watch that show.
Oh, but I do want to add one thing.
Okay, sure thing.
No, I was just going to say, you are incredible, by the way.
Oh.
I'm a big NFL fan. We didn't talk about that, but I'm big into football. And I went to the Super Bowl, and I'm excited. The Green Bay Packers are definitely one of my favorite teams.
Oh, okay.
And you rock. And I feel very privileged to be on your show. And thank you so much for having me, because you're awesome.
Man, thank you. I really appreciate that. Hey, remember, everybody, be blessed and not stressed. Thank you so much.